Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Hannah Fakhfouri. I'm a geneticist and I'm here to present to you the pre-week preparation for the first week of medical school, and this is the genetics week. This pre-week preparation is going to come in 3 parts, and this is part 1 pertaining to the cell and nucleic acids. I have no conflicts of interest to disclose. So let's talk about the objectives for this short module. By the end of this module, you should be able to describe the normal components of the cell and also describe the main components of DNA as well as chromosomes. So I introduced to you the cell. This is the functional unit of the body, and we have about 50 to 100 trillion cells. That's a lot of cells in the body. And the body cells all differ from one another based on which genes are active and which proteins are produced at a given point in time within the body. The cell is composed of a cell membrane as well as a cell cytoplasm, which forms a matrix within the cell. And you have organelles within the cell, and we'll talk about that in a few slides. Each cell has a cell cytoskeleton, and this is a complex network of filaments and tubules that are found within the cytoplasm of the cell. And the cell cytoskeleton has a really important role in terms of supporting the shape of the cell and providing mechanical resistance to deformation of the cell so they don't get smushed. They can be involved with a variety of cell signaling pathways and are involved with endocytosis, and that's when you bring in certain molecules within the cell. The cell cytoskeleton is comprised mainly of certain proteins called microtubules as well as microfilaments. Within the cell, you have a variety of organelles, and those are specialized subunits within the cells that have very specific functions. And there are multiple patients that have problems within organelles, and I follow a lot of these patients myself. And examples of clinically relevant organelles include the lysosome and peroxisome, the mitochondria, which is involved with the important energy metabolism within the cell, and the Golgi apparatus, which is this kind of green blob in this far corner. The Golgi apparatus, for example, is involved with post-translational modification of proteins, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a further module. You can read more about organelles in a basic biology textbook or some of the pre-week materials that I'll provide to you on the portal. So I'll give you an example of a lysosomal storage disease. So within the lysosome, you actually have a variety of different enzymes. And if you actually have a problem with one of the enzymes that are involved with breaking down complex macromolecules, you can get a buildup of these macromolecules within the system. You can get a buildup within the skeleton, and you can see that right here, where you have abnormalities in the spine as well as in the hands and other parts of the patient's skeleton. The patients can sometimes have an accumulation of these macromolecules in the connective tissue, and that imparts a kind of coarse facial features to patients. And they can actually have distended abdomens because of enlarged liver and spleens. They can build up the macromolecules within the gums and the tongue, so they have large tongues and kind of these thickened gums. I also follow a lot of patients with mitochondrial disease. These patients have problems within their mitochondria, so they don't get enough energy within their individual cells. This affects the energy-loving cells the most, so that includes various types of heart muscle as well as in the brain. In the brain, because of this energy deficiency, they're predisposed to various types of strokes. So as you see right here, you actually have this in the corner, you actually have an MRI of the brain of a patient who has mitochondrial disease. And that darkened shaded area is that you see on one side of the brain is an area where the brain didn't get enough oxygen, and that is the mitochondrial stroke. You can also get a really thickened or unusual heart muscle because of this energy deficiency, and that's called cardiomyopathy, and you see that right here. And you can also get some muscle weakness because of abnormal mitochondria within the muscle cells. And this muscle cell can affect, abnormality can affect the eye as well, where you can get some droopiness of the eyelids called ptosis, and you can get problems with the patient actually moving their eyes in a variety of different directions, and that's called ophthalmoplegia. A really important organelle within the cell is called the nucleus, and this is the site of storage for the cell's genetic material. The nucleus is surrounded by a membrane that's very similar in composition to the cell membrane. This is the site where chromosomes or packaged DNA is stored. So let's talk about the major players here. So let's talk about DNA. It stands for deoxyribose nucleic acid. It's composed of 4 nucleotides, and those are the designated as G, guanine, A, adenine, T, thymine, and C, cytosine. And what's cool about these nucleotides is that they can actually complement each other and bind to each other to form actually this complementary DNA strand, and they occur in a side-by-side arrangement, as you see here. The backbone is involved with deoxyribose sugars as well as phosphate backbone on either side. And this actually gives that double helix configuration that we see in DNA. A chromosome is a very organized and very tightly wound package of DNA. So if you actually wind DNA around proteins called histones, it actually forms these packages called chromosomes. Now, back in the day, we used to think that we had 48 chromosomes in total, which we since learned is actually completely wrong. Do not use this old textbook as a reference. This is from the 30s. We found out in the 50s that we actually have 23 pairs of chromosomes, where you have 1 pair of sex chromosomes. Females have 2 X's, and males have an X and a Y chromosomes, and all the other chromosomes are called autosomes, and we have 22 pairs of those. You get 1 copy from your mom and 1 copy from your dad. Over the chromosomes, you are scattered 25,000 genes, where you actually have 2 copies of each gene, as I mentioned, because you have 2 copies of each chromosome. So to reiterate, I am a human, and I have 46 chromosomes with 23 pairs. My pet goldfish has 94 chromosomes, and that's 47 pairs. My pet elephant, for example, has 56 chromosomes, or 28 pairs of chromosomes. And to be clear, the number of chromosomes doesn't impart a certain degree of sophistication in terms of the animal type, I hope. So it has no bearing on that, and it's very different between different animals. All humans have 46 chromosomes in total. Let's talk about genes very briefly. It is the basic unit of heredity. Genes are found along chromosomes, and they're found in a really predictable order and on predictable chromosomes, and they are in the same order, in the same location, on the same chromosomes in every human. The average gene size is about 3,000 nucleotides, but you actually have a wide variation between genes, where the largest known gene is a whopping 2.5 million nucleotides long, and that's the gene for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So here we actually have chromosome 17, and chromosomes actually have a short arm, which is designated as the P arm, or petit for you French-speaking students. And the Q arm is the long arm, which actually comes after P, and that's how you should remember it. The genes are actually found along the P and Q arms of chromosome 17s and designated by the blue words on the actual chromosome on this figure right here. In summary, after this module, you should be able to describe the normal components of the cell and describe the main components of DNA and chromosomes.